Listen, if you've ever felt lonely, if you've ever questioned your worth when no one was around, this is for you. Society tells you that happiness comes from being with others, from relationships, from approval. But if I told you that true happiness starts with you? If you can't find joy alone, you won't find it in a crowd. Stay with me, and I promise these next few minutes will change the way you see your own life. We live in a world where people chase relationships, friendships, and social validation, thinking that happiness is something others must give us. But the truth is, the most powerful and fulfilled people in this world learn one simple truth. Happiness is an inside job. It's not given to you by someone else. It's created by you, within you, for you. Look at Oprah Winfrey. She didn't wait for someone to complete her. She built herself. She turned loneliness into power, silence into self-discovery, and solitude into strength. She understood that when you become comfortable being alone, you become unstoppable. Think about this. When you rely on others for happiness, you give them control over your life. But when you learn to be happy alone, you take back that power. You wake up each day knowing that your joy is in your hands, not someone else's. So how do you do it? How do you become happy alone? It starts with embracing who you are. It's about turning solitude into self-love, silence into wisdom, and independence into strength. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. Being alone is an opportunity to grow, to heal, to create. Some of the greatest minds in history, Oprah, Einstein, Steve Jobs, embraced solitude because that's where they found their true selves. So stop fearing being alone. Use it. Own it. Build yourself so that when you walk into a room, your energy speaks before you even say a word. Because when you love your own company, the world will love it too. Happiness is something many people spend their whole lives chasing, thinking it comes from relationships, success, or material things. But happiness is not something you find outside, it's something you build within. The moment you understand this, everything changes. You stop looking at people, situations, or achievements as the key to your joy. Instead, you realize that happiness is a state of mind, a way of being, not a destination. Most people tie their happiness to external factors. They say, I'll be happy when I get that job. Or I'll be happy when I find the right partner. But what happens when you lose the job? What happens when the relationship ends? If your happiness depends on things outside of you, then you are always at the mercy of something you can't fully control. This is why so many people feel lost when they are alone. They have never built happiness within themselves. They have always borrowed it from others, friends, family, social media, attention. And when those things are taken away, they feel empty. But the truth is, happiness was never lost. It was just never truly theirs to begin with. To be truly happy, you must understand that everything outside of you is temporary. People will come and go. Success will rise and fall. Situations will change. But the one thing that stays with you always is yourself. When you realize this, you stop searching for happiness in temporary things and start creating it within. You start finding joy in simple moments, in silence, in nature, in your own thoughts. This is not about rejecting relationships or achievements. It's about making sure they are additions to your happiness, not the source of it. When you learn to generate happiness from within, everything else becomes a bonus, not a requirement. You stop fearing solitude because you know that happiness is something you bring with you, not something you need to find. And that is the kind of happiness that no one can take away. Loneliness and solitude might look the same on the outside, but inside they are completely different experiences. Loneliness is a feeling of emptiness, a craving for something or someone to fill a space inside you. It feels heavy, like something is missing, like you are disconnected from the world. Solitude, on the other hand, is a choice. It is the ability to be alone and still feel whole, still feel at peace. Loneliness comes from a belief that you need something external to complete you. It makes you restless, makes you search for distractions, makes you afraid of silence. It's why people scroll endlessly on their phones, jump from one relationship to another, or surround themselves with noise just to avoid facing themselves. But no matter how much they try to escape it, the loneliness remains because it is not about who is around them. It is about what is happening inside them. Solitude is different. Solitude is when you are alone, but you don't feel lost. You don't feel empty. You feel connected to yourself, to life, to something greater. In solitude, you are not running away from yourself. You are sitting with yourself, understanding yourself. It is in solitude that people find their greatest ideas, their deepest clarity, their true selves. This is why artists, thinkers, and visionaries embrace solitude. They know that being alone is not a weakness, it is a space for growth. Most people fear being alone because they have never been taught how to be with themselves. They associate being alone with being unwanted or unloved. But the reality is, solitude is where self-love begins. When you stop looking for others to fill your silence, you start hearing your own voice. You start learning who you really are. You start realizing that your value does not decrease just because there is no one there to validate it. Solitude teaches you that you are already complete, that your existence is enough, that you do not need to be surrounded by people to feel important. Being alone is not the problem. The problem is how you feel when you are alone. Most people are uncomfortable with their own company because they have never learned to enjoy it. They see being alone as a punishment, as if silence itself is something to be afraid of. But if you cannot be happy with yourself, how can you expect anyone else to be happy with you? When you enjoy your own company, you stop depending on others for entertainment, validation, or distraction. You realize that you are enough, that your thoughts, your dreams, and your presence are valuable on their own. You no longer feel the need to constantly surround yourself with people just to avoid feeling lonely. Instead, you use your alone time to recharge, to think, to create, and to grow. Many people believe that being alone means being bored or being disconnected from the world. But in reality, the opposite is true. When you truly enjoy your own company, you are never bored because you have yourself. You are never disconnected because you are deeply connected with your own mind, your own heart. Some of the most powerful people in history spent large amounts of time alone, not because they had no one, but because they understood that solitude is where the mind expands, where creativity is born, where real strength is developed. The more you enjoy your own company, the more confident you become. You stop feeling the need to prove yourself to others, to chase approval, to fit in. You become someone who walks into a room with quiet power, not because you need attention, but because you are already whole without it. People are naturally drawn to those who are comfortable with themselves because they sense that kind of peace, that kind of self-assurance. Instead of seeing alone time as something to escape from, see it as something to embrace. When you sit with yourself without distraction, you begin to understand who you really are. You start to appreciate your own thoughts, your own presence, your own existence. And when you learn to do that, you will never feel truly lonely again. When you are alone, you have a choice. You can either see it as empty time, something to fill with distractions, or you can use it as a chance to grow. Most people waste their solitude filling it with noise, scrolling, watching, listening, just to avoid being alone with their thoughts. But those who understand the power of solitude use it to improve themselves. They see it as an opportunity, not a burden. Self-improvement happens when there is space for it. When you are constantly surrounded by people, by conversations, by external influences, your mind is filled with their thoughts, their opinions, their energy. But when you are alone, your mind is your own. It is in that quiet space that you can reflect, that you can ask yourself real questions. Who are you? What do you want? Where are you going? These are questions that can only be answered in stillness. Reading, learning, and growing are things that flourish in solitude. A book can teach you in silence what 1,000 conversations may never reveal. A moment of deep thought can change your perspective in ways that years of socializing cannot. When you dedicate time to improving yourself, you no longer fear being alone because you see it as a gift. You realize that every moment spent on your growth is an investment in your future. Great minds have always embraced solitude because they know that transformation happens in stillness. Artists, writers, philosophers, leaders, they all understand that creation, wisdom, and vision are born in moments of deep reflection. They do not see solitude as loneliness. They see it as a workshop, a training ground for the mind. When you use your alone time to improve yourself, you no longer feel the need to constantly seek company. You no longer depend on others to entertain you or make you feel fulfilled. Instead, you build a version of yourself that is interesting, that is wise, that is constantly evolving. And the more you grow, the more you realize that being alone is not about missing out on life. It is about preparing yourself to live it fully. Most people spend their lives chasing validation. They want to be liked, to be accepted, to be approved by others. They shape their words, their actions, even their dreams based on what will make them more acceptable in the eyes of society. But the more you seek validation from others, the more power you give away. You allow your happiness, your confidence, your self-worth to be controlled by people who may not even understand you. Validation feels good. Compliment, a like, a word of approval. It gives a temporary sense of worth. But what happens when it disappears? When no one is watching, when no one is praising you, do you still feel valuable? If your self-worth is built on what others think, then it is fragile, easily shaken by criticism, by indifference, by the simple fact that people are too busy with their own lives to constantly lift you up. True confidence comes from within, comes from knowing yourself so well that you do not need the world to tell you who you are. It comes from trusting your own thoughts, your own choices, without waiting for someone else to confirm them. The people who make the biggest impact in the world are not those who constantly ask for approval. They are the ones who stand firm in their beliefs, who follow their own path, even when no one claps for them. Seeking validation is a never-ending race. The standards keep changing, the approval fades, and soon you find yourself running after the next source of acceptance. But when you stop seeking it, when you learn to validate yourself, you become free. You no longer base your worth on other people's opinions. You no longer feel the need to prove anything. You become someone who moves with quiet strength, someone who does not need attention to feel important. The moment you stop depending on others for validation is the moment you take back control of your life. You realize that you are always enough, not because someone said so, but because you decide to believe it yourself. When you have a purpose, being alone is no longer a problem. It becomes fuel. It gives you direction. It gives you a reason to wake up every day with energy, even when no one is watching. People who struggle with solitude often do so because they have no clear sense of purpose. Without a purpose, time feels empty. Days feel meaningless, and being alone feels like a burden rather than an opportunity. A strong purpose gives your life structure, keeps your mind occupied with something greater than temporary emotions. When you know what you want and why you want it, solitude becomes your ally. You use your time alone to build, to create, to take steps toward your goals. You no longer wait for motivation from the outside, because your purpose itself drives you forward. Many people avoid being alone because they associate it with stagnation. They feel like they are doing nothing, going nowhere. But those who have a purpose understand that solitude is a space where real progress happens. It is where dreams are planned, where skills are sharpened, where ideas are developed. The greatest minds in history spent countless hours alone, not wasting time, but using it to refine their vision. Purpose gives meaning to solitude. It turns isolation into productivity. It shifts your focus from feeling lonely to feeling driven. When you are busy creating, learning, and moving toward your goals, you don't have time to dwell on the fear of being alone. You are too focused on what you are building. You start valuing your alone time because it becomes a tool for self-improvement, for mastering your craft, for turning your ideas into reality. A person without purpose seeks distractions. They chase temporary highs, constantly looking for something or someone to fill the empty space inside them. But a person with purpose embraces solitude. They see it as necessary, as valuable, as the place where they grow stronger. Instead of feeling lost when they are alone, they feel empowered because they know they are using their time to create something meaningful. Self-love is not just about feeling good about yourself. It is about how you treat yourself, how you speak to yourself, how you carry yourself even when no one is watching. Most people look for love in others without ever learning how to give it to themselves. They expect kindness, respect, and care from the world, but they do not practice those same things in their own lives. They criticize themselves, doubt themselves, and ignore their own needs. And then they wonder why they feel empty, why they feel like something is missing. Loving yourself is not about arrogance or selfishness. It is about understanding your worth without needing someone else to remind you. It is about treating yourself the way you would treat someone you truly care about. When you love yourself, you do not tolerate things that drain you. You do not allow people to walk over you. You do not settle for less than you deserve. You respect yourself enough to walk away from what no longer serves you, even if it means being alone for a while. Self-love is a practice. It is in the small things, how you talk to yourself when you make a mistake, how you take care of your body, how you choose what is right for you instead of what is easy. People who love themselves do not wait for the world to give them permission to feel good. They do not seek validation from relationships, from success, from social media. They create their own validation by knowing they are enough as they are. When you truly love yourself, you stop begging for love from others. You stop chasing people who do not value you. You stop fearing solitude because you enjoy your own presence. Love becomes something you give, not something you desperately seek. And when love comes into your life, it is not to complete you, but to add to what is already whole. Those who love themselves attract love naturally, not because they need it, but because they radiate something that others want to be around. Being alone is not just about spending time by yourself. It is about what you do with that time. Many people fear solitude because when they are alone, all their unhealed wounds rise to the surface. The regrets, the disappointments, the mistakes, they all come back when there are no distractions. This is why people run from silence, filling every moment with noise, with entertainment, with company. But true healing only happens when you stop running and allow yourself to face what is inside. Reflection is not about living in the past, it is about understanding it. When you take time to sit with your thoughts, to process what you have been through, you begin to see patterns. You begin to understand why certain things happened, why you reacted the way you did, and what lessons life was trying to teach you. Instead of carrying your past like a weight, you start learning from it. Most people avoid their pain, thinking that ignoring it will make it disappear. But pain that is ignored does not leave. It stays buried, affecting every decision, every relationship, every moment. Healing begins when you stop suppressing your emotions and start acknowledging them. When you allow yourself to feel, to understand, and to let go, you free yourself from the weight of the past. Time alone is an opportunity to clear your mind, to forgive yourself, to move forward without baggage. It is in these moments of solitude that you truly reconnect with yourself. You begin to hear your own voice again, not the voices of past mistakes or the opinions of others. You start making choices that are based on what you truly want, not what your pain is pushing you toward. The more you reflect, the more self-awareness you develop. You start recognizing what is good for you and what is not. You stop repeating the same cycles because you have taken the time to understand them. You realize that being alone is not something to escape from. It is something that gives you clarity, that helps you heal, that allows you to step into the future without carrying the past with you. Relying on others for happiness is like building a house on unstable ground. The moment the people around you change, leave, or disappoint you, everything falls apart. Many people go through life depending on relationships, friendships, or society to give them a sense of worth, a sense of purpose. But when that external support is taken away, they feel lost, empty, directionless. The truth is, no one else can live your life for you. No one else can give you lasting happiness. That is something only you can create for yourself. Independence is not just about being financially stable or physically capable. It is about emotional and mental strength. It is about knowing that no matter what happens, you can take care of yourself. You can support yourself, comfort yourself, and push yourself forward even when no one else is there to do it for you. When you become self-reliant, you stop waiting for someone to come and save you because you realize you are fully capable of saving yourself. Depending on others for happiness puts you in a vulnerable position. It means that your peace, your joy, your confidence can be taken away at any moment. But when you learn to rely on yourself, you gain a kind of freedom that few people ever experience. You stop fearing loneliness because you trust that you can handle it. You stop feeling desperate for approval because you know your worth without needing someone else to confirm it. Self-reliance does not mean rejecting help or pushing people away. It means that your foundation is strong on its own. It means that when people enter your life, they are not there to complete you, but to add to what is already whole. It is about finding joy in your own presence, about building a life where you are enough. When you reach that point, relationships become a choice, not a necessity. You no longer seek companionship out of fear of being alone, but because you truly want to share your life with others from a place of strength, not dependency. Happiness is not a destination, it is a way of living. Most people believe they will be happy once they reach a certain point, once they have the right job, the right relationship, the right circumstances. But happiness does not come from the outside. It is not something that suddenly appears when life aligns perfectly. It is something you choose, something you create, regardless of what is happening around you. There will always be ups and downs in life. There will be moments of success and moments of failure, times of connection and times of loneliness. If your happiness depends on everything going right, then you will never truly be happy because life is always changing. The key is to learn to be happy in this moment, not in some imagined future. Happiness is found in the small things, the quiet moments, the simple joys. It is in the warmth of the sun on your face, the laughter that comes unexpectedly, the peace of a silent morning. It is in the way you treat yourself, in the way you appreciate what you have instead of constantly longing for what you don't. Many people overlook these moments because they are too busy chasing something bigger, believing that happiness is always somewhere else. But real happiness is here, now, waiting to be noticed. Learning to be happy alone is one of the greatest strengths a person can develop. When you can find joy in your own company, you become unstoppable. You no longer rely on circumstances to dictate how you feel. You wake up with a sense of gratitude, knowing that happiness is not something you wait for, it is something you create. You realize that being alone does not mean being empty. It means having the space to enjoy life in its purest form, without distraction, without expectation. People search for happiness as if it is something they must earn. But happiness is not something you find, it is something you become. It is a choice, a practice, a way of looking at the world. And once you understand that, you will never waste another moment waiting for happiness to arrive, because you will already be living it. Now don't just listen, act. Take this message and start building a life where you are your own source of happiness. Because when you learn to be happy alone, you unlock a freedom that no one can take away from you.